Wow, thank you guys so much. This is a rare, amazing treat for me. I'm so honored to be here. I know if my dad was alive today, he'd be like, yeah, dude, you finally made it. And it wouldn't be for any of the accolades that I've had in the entertainment business. I mean, this would be his proudest moment because I think what he instilled in myself, my brother, and my sister, and all of us is just to try and become great people. And if one day we became parents, he would always say, you know what? See this I'm going through with you right now? When you're a parent, you're gonna really understand, dude. And I truly do, and I truly love being a parent, and I think it's probably, amongst all the things that I've done in my life, probably my greatest joy. And I tell people all the time, they say, well, what are you most proud of? I say being a parent, being a dad, and having my kids say that, you know, my dad's kind of cool, man. He listens to me. You know, we hang out, we do things, because I think, you know, for me, it's been a great experience because my kids are like my best friends. We talk about everything, we do everything together. So, you know, definitely I have a semi-stern hand, maybe not quite the Simon Cowell one, but Simon's just inwardly a little angry, but more than not. But I think, you know, I hear them talk to their friends, and, you know, my son has a little band, he's 10, and he's got a little rock band that he's in now, and you know, I'll go out there and jam with them, and they'll go, you know, I mean, your dad is cool, man. Like, people don't really know this guy. They see this guy on TV, and they think he's one way, and he's actually really this cool, like, warm, gentle, kind of, still very cool guy. So, so I'm really happy about that. And I got to tell you something, man. Ozzy, that was good. The yo, check it out. That was good, man. That means Ozzy's been watching the show.
I had somebody involved.
Yeah. And I got to give a big shout out. You know, I give shout outs, right? I got to give a big shout out to Mark Schreiber here because he brought Save the Children into my life, and it's definitely helped to enrich my life. And we worked together with the Katrina victims a couple years ago on Idol Gives Back, and we just worked this past year, well, this year, a couple of months back on Idol Gives Back in California. So it's an amazing organization, so proud and happy to be a part of it, and happy to be here, and happy to be honored amongst the names from years past. I can't even believe I'm in this esteemed panel of these guys. It's so cool. Thank you.
I have the honor to introduce the Ashok Sani All-Star Dad and Father of the Year. But first, let me speak a little bit about Ashok Sani. Ashok Sani was my dear friend, and I miss him every day, as I know many of you in the audience do too. Ashok was the president of CGS Industries and was born and educated in Hong Kong before coming to the United States and New York University. He majored in accounting and management and graduated NYU summa cum laude in the class of 1974. At the time, Ashok was the youngest ever to graduate NYU. He then joined his family business, where he excelled and always retained a strong commitment to making the world a better place. In tribute to Ashok's commitment and love of New York University, the Sani Family Foundation is the sole underwriter for the Ashok Sani Scholar in Residence program, which shares Ashok's interest in ethics, truth, love, peace, nonviolence, compassion, and the moral and social responsibilities of members of society with the NYU community. Ashok Sani, beloved husband to Shalu and the most devoted father to Suraj and Monish. His family was his life and calling. Ashok was an incredible human being beloved by all. So today, in the spirit of Ashok Sani and his desire to give equal credit and recognition to all, in the spirit of Ashok Sani, All-Star Everyday Dad, Father of the Year, in the spirit of Ashok Sani, who would congratulate our very distinguished, accomplished, and deserving honorees, I evoke this thought. Today and every day, let's also celebrate the everyday dad, the father who works 2 jobs to make ends meet and keep his family together. It may be the father that just served you lunch, or the father that drove you here, the father who is teaching our children, who is fixing our roads, the father who is picking up our garbage, the father protecting our streets, the father running into burning buildings as we are running out, and the father, the dad, who is thousands of miles away in unknown and unforgiving territory protecting the United States of America. That is the father Ashok Sani had the most pride as an American. Representing all everyday dads, Men's Health magazine graciously runs with the Sani Family Foundation an essay contest. This essay you are about to hear swayed the committee comprised of the Sani family, and there are many of them, and the Father's Day Council. This year, Ashok Sani All-Star Dad essay submitted to Men's Health magazine. The winner is Sue Wonder. Sue will read the most moving essay about this year's honoree, her husband, Rob Wonder. Sue, please come to the podium.
Good afternoon. When I agreed to read the essay, they told me there was only going to be 20 people here, so I'm a little nervous. My son had plans to go to Temple University to study film. Just before his junior year in high school, however, he dove into a swimming pool and broke his neck. He shattered his C5 vertebrae, leaving him paralyzed from the chest down. He finished high school and was accepted at Temple University this past fall. Unfortunately, our insurance would not cover his care because they did not deem him medically needy enough. Instead of telling my son he had to stay home so that we could care for him, maybe go to community college, my husband left his job after 23 years of teaching handicapped children and moved into my son's dorm room with him. My husband sleeps on an air mattress on the floor. He gets my son, who is 6'2", 220 pounds, out of bed every day, showers him, shaves, dresses him, feeds him his breakfast. Then he walks him to class and sets up his laptop. And then he goes back to his room. He cleans his room, he does his laundry, prepares his lunch. At night, he puts him in bed, takes care of his personal issues. And then my husband gets up every 2 hours to turn my son so that he doesn't get any pressure sores. He takes him to and from the hospital with various issues for one 10-day stint so that my son did not have to sit in the hospital for 2 weeks and miss classes. My husband administered an IV through a PICC line for an infection my son suffered. My son, at the point of this essay, had 5 weeks to his first year in college, and he plans to continue. When people tell my husband what an awesome thing he's doing, what a sacrifice, I love his response. He's my son. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Rob Wonder.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Smile for the camera so you get
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, they did say 20 people were going to be here. That's why I said, speech, no problem. First, I would like to thank Sunil and his family, the Sani family, for having us here. My family's over table 21, I believe. And the Father's Day Committee for having us here. It's quite a trip. We come from South Jersey down Cape May. I don't like those Jersey jokes I heard, by the way, either. Especially Southern Jersey. It's truly, I'm humbled but honored to be here with these men. And it's unbelievable. You know, I'm sure every one of them is going to get up and talk about the people behind them that make them successful and the teams behind them that make them successful. And I'm no different. I'm accepting this award because I'm part of a team. On July 23rd, 2006, our lives were changed forever when my son was in a swimming pool accident. And since that day, our family, our friends, and our community rallied behind us to something you could never imagine. Even to this day, people are still doing things for us, and it is absolutely unbelievable. So I would like to share this award with that group of people because they have allowed me to be an all-star dad. I would especially like to share this with my wife, Sue, my daughter, Haley, and of course, Rob, who we've spent 9 months together in a 15 by 15 dorm room and we still talk to one another. What do you think, Rob? 3 more years and then grad school? So what? So once again, I am truly honored, yet humbled, to win this award, and I just want to say thank you to everyone.
So please welcome 2010 Father of the Year, David Gregory.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, an honor to be here. The Father's Day Council is very nice to include me in this event, and congratulations to everybody else on the dais here for their accomplishments. My children are far more interesting than I am, and so I like to just tell a couple of quick stories about which is the light of my life, which is the material that they provide me. So my son Jed, who's 5, after Obama was elected, in that intervening period of transition, President Bush, whom I'd covered for some time, invited me with my kids to come see Despero, the kids' film at the White House, and it was terrific. And we went down there. My older son Max had already met the president, had spent time, so we were there, and my son Jed was just so excited to be there. And I tell this story in the context of how exciting Washington was at that time, new president, history being made. There was a lot of buzz about Barack Obama becoming president. It was just a very exciting time, so much hype. And so even extending to my kids. So my son Jed, he meets President Bush, and he shakes his hand and comes right over. He said, Daddy, I met the president. He said, I put my hand out, and he put his hand out, and he shook my hand. I just met the president. I said, well, sweetheart, this is fantastic. This is just you. And we're walking about 5 feet away from the president. He looked up at me and he said, was that Barack Obama? So there was just so much hype, so much hype. The other piece, the great source of all my material in my life comes from my daughter, Ava, who's just frankly confounding. I don't really know how else to explain it. But so she said recently, she said, Dad, I'd like some more cereal. Can I have some more cereal? And I said, well, sweetheart, I've checked, and we just don't have any more. She said, really? She said, why don't you look harder? And, I think General Petraeus alluded to this. I mean, we have to be good examples of setting limits and parameters and discipline. And so I said to her, okay, I'll check downstairs maybe. Maybe I've overlooked that. Anyway, there's lots of fun stories. We all have them. I think, for me, I think fatherhood is a great responsibility. I can't remember a time in my life when I didn't want to be a dad. So it's just the natural fulfillment of what I think I am and what my purpose in life is. And I also want to single out Mark Shriver and the work that's done with Save the Children. I think it's also really important as dads that it's not just talking about that we want our kids to live with a sense of purpose and to do things for other people, but you have to walk that walk. You have to be a living example for them. So I'm pleased to be part of an event that really is going to benefit such a worthy cause as well. So thank you all very much.
First of all, I want to say thank you so much. And I'm really going to put this award to great use. People who know me know that I have 4 children. My oldest daughter is 40, and I have a son who's 39, and a son who's 35, and a 13-year-old. It's a story there. This is a fairly young group, but I should just warn you all, when our oldest kids went away to college, my wife and I, we had that empty nest thing going, right? And we were sitting around looking at one another, and we said, raising those 3 kids, that wasn't that hard. That just goes to show, as you get older, your memory's the first thing that goes, right? So just warn you, if that empty nest thing happens, it'll pass, right? So, but there are another 22 kids that call me father. That these are kids throughout my life and career that I have just adopted in the way that people adopt kids who have no father in their life and want a father. They want someone to just be that role, and they just want to call somebody father and have that person, that man, love them like a father loves his kids. And so it's always interesting when people work for me, and in the first few years they work for me, they keep getting these calls from folk who says, oh yeah, I'm Jeff's daughter, I'm Jeff's son. You know, after about 14 calls, they start looking at you really different. Like, what have you been doing all of this time? I have a desire that was, like most of the things I do in my life, it's personal. There are lots of kids who grew up like I did without a father. And I always wanted the opportunity to be a father to as many kids as possible. And I take pride in this award more so than anything I've ever received, and I've received numerous awards, because if you know anything about me, I want to be known as a good father and a good man. Before anything else, that's what I want. And I think, fathers have just an infinite capacity to love and forgive. And I asked God, could I just, be the father to as many kids as possible? And I have my kids that call me father, and there's the other 11,000 kids at the Harlem Children's Zone that I love. And each night when I go to bed, I just say to God, I hope I have in my heart the capacity to love another 11,000. So this is going right on my mantle, and thank you all very much.
Shalom, Barak Hashem. Before I give my long, tedious 15-second speech, I would like all the fathers to stand up. All the fathers in the house, stand up. All the fathers, stand up. Give yourself a round of applause. I've received a lot of great awards. I won an Oscar for Kazam. I got a couple NBA rings, just received my doctorate, but nothing beats the title of Father of the Year. This is the most prestigious award. So, I'd like to thank the committee. I'd like to thank Anthony Mark. Anthony's his brother. There are parties a lot in Miami. That's a different Shiver. I also like to thank the other honorees. Like to thank everyone for coming. As parents, I think we just need to continue to work on innovative ways to raise our children the best we can. Tell you a quick funny story of a couple years ago. I decided to coach my son in basketball because that's what my father did me, and we were 15-0. I used to call myself the Black Pat Riley and the Black Phil Jackson. But we get to the championship game, and we're down 8 with like 2 minutes to go, and I don't know what to say to the kids, so now I have to start thinking innovative. So I give the only speech I knew I could give. I said, kids, if we win this game, I'll take you to Hooters. And we won by 6. So I want to thank everyone for coming out. Continue to support Save the Children. I hope no parent got mad at the Hooters thing. We sat in the back if that's upset you. You know what? I'd like to give a couple of quotes that I stole off the internet. Abe Lincoln, our 16th and tallest president, once said, "No man stands taller than when he stops to help a child." So, thanks for coming today. And helping kids is always in style. So again, thank you for coming out. Love you very much and appreciate it. All the fathers love you guys.
Governor Christie and I, he mentioned that we were speaking in back. Just to tell you a quick story. So my wife, I get a phone call from downstairs, mind you, I'm upstairs. And she calls me one day and she says, so what's this Father of the Year stuff, you know? I said, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, they nominated me for, and that's a bad habit I have. I never tell people what I'm being, awarded for. I said, I forgot to tell you. She said, oh, well, they didn't ask me. She said, what have you done? She said, maybe Father of the Day, not Father of the Year. Well, she couldn't be here because she's at home breastfeeding. We have a three-month-old, so she couldn't get away. She said, what have you done in your Father of the Year? I said, you know what? She asked me this today. I said, last night, our daughter, her name's Ava, she's 2.5. She has like this routine before she goes to bed. And it's so hard just to get her to go down and go to sleep. So she says, I'm putting her to bed. Mind you, I have to take a shower, like she says, a wower. I have to take a shower with her, and I have to wear my swimming trunks, and I have to hold her on my back, and I have to dance and play Bruno Mars and sing Locked Out of Heaven to her, and before I get her to go to bed. And so my wife said, well, what'd you do to get Father of the Year? I said, last night, I answered 22 whys in a row. She's at that phase where she wants to know why about everything. So I said, all right, Ava, it's time for you to go night-night. She says, but why? I said, because it's getting late and, it's time to go to bed. But why? Because it's like 8 o'clock and you see outside, it's starting to get dark. The sun is going down. But why? Well, Ava, because, the planets revolve around the sun and, it's just the way it happens and you have to, but what? So to bore you of the other, like 15 whys, the conversation ended up with me saying, listen, on the 7th day, God rested. And if God had to take a rest, then Ava has to go night-night too. And, then she says, oh, okay. And she lays down. Well, again, let me get back to the point, the reason why we're here. This is one of the awards that I would never in a million years think that I'd ever be up here standing receiving because, I grew up without my father. And I think there's a huge difference between having a father and having a daddy. I never had a daddy, I had a father. I spoke a little bit about, my relationship with my father, a man that I always loved, that I always tried to have a relationship with, but he was just unavailable. He was there until I was, I believe, 5 years old. And I watched my father literally do some things that children shouldn't see. I literally watched him beat my mother so bad. I mean, like she was a man. I've seen him, take every drug in the world. And I mean, one of the things that my father taught me is what not to be as a father. And sometimes I think you have to make lemonade out of lemons. And that was my life situation. One of the things that I'll never forget was my father giving me a call. And he says, Kurt, why don't you come home? I said, all right, Dad, is there anything in particular? Any reason why? He said, well, no, I just want you to come home. And usually if he calls me, I know it's because he needs money or something. I said, well, you know what, you need some money or anything? He said, no, I don't need any money. And that was the first time in my entire life that my father ever said he didn't need any money. And so I decided to go home. And when I get there, he's no longer living in his house. He's actually at the hospice. And so I go to visit him there, and I'm sitting there and I'm talking to him, and he says, that cancer got me, man. I said, wow. I said, so what are they saying? He said, I don't think I have long. And I went outside to speak to the doctor. I said, well, listen, Doc, can you just shoot straight with me? How much longer do my father have? He said, less than a month, Curtis. Maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 at best. And I went in there and sat with my father, and it was the most amazing time of my life. I felt like it was the first time that I had a daddy, because the time that we spent in those 2 weeks was unbelievable. And I feel like my father taught me more in that 2 weeks than he did in my entire 30-some years at that time that he was living. Very, very grateful just to have that time with him. And I just want to say this because I think that it's really important. I'm sure there are some fathers and mothers in here who may not have the best relationship with their children, and some children who may not have the best relationship with their parents. But life is too short. You just never know when that person is going to be gone. And all these things that seem like big issues and big divides between you and your parents or you and your children, forgive them. Just forgive them. I think that was one of the greatest things that my father taught me, because though he wasn't there, though I seen him abuse my mother, though I feel like he chose drugs over me, his son, though he would never come to any of my games or anything, one of the greatest lessons I learned from my father is how to forgive, because I totally forgave him. And one of my greatest accomplishments in life was getting my mother, after all that she had been through, to forgive my father. It was that's my greatest accomplishment. I've been to Pro Bowls, I've played in the NFL, I've done a lot with my life that I'm very proud of, but I'm most proud of being able to get my mother to forgive my father for all that he did to her. And I know we're honoring fathers, and I'm so grateful for this honor, but I really have to honor my mother right now, because excuse me, I'm sorry. She taught me how to be a man, and it's because of what she taught me that I'm able to be the father that I am today to my children. And that's one of the greatest gifts out of everything that I've been through in my life. I'm so glad to be blessed with 2 little daughters, and they are like my heart. And I'm so grateful to be able to be a good father to them. And I'm really thankful for you all honoring me tonight. Thank you all.
Good afternoon. And I want to just start out by saying, Gary, congratulations. You got to be so proud of Brett and Kyle. Great job, Brett. That was pretty smooth. As parents, we get a lot of joy from our children, so I know you must feel great about that. It's an honor to be here, and I'm humble to be here. I want to also say that I'm pleased to share this day with a good friend and great business partner, Michael Strahan. Michael's a great business partner for JCPenney, but typically when you deal with celebrities, you find that they're not what they seem. This happens to be one of the most authentic people that you'll ever meet, so he's a classic example of a contradiction of a celebrity, and he's a great partner, and again, it's a pleasure to share the stage with him. So look, of all the things I've accomplished thus far in my life, I'm probably most proud of the fact that my wife Sharon and I have committed ourselves to being the best parents that we can be. As mentioned, Sharon and I have been married for 25 years. She looks a lot younger than me. I think it's genetics, which is a good thing. And we've been soulmates for over 30 years. And I want to thank her for being here today and thank her for all the support. Family is important for me. I'm a middle child of 7 kids. Grew up in a 2-stoplight town in rural Tennessee. I got a lot of family at this table. If I start to name everybody, we'll have the clock running down on me. But I want to thank all of my family, my siblings, in-laws, my dad for being here, because family is something that's very important to my wife and I. And I'll get to Gabrielle in a minute here. My son Donovan, who is 21, he's going to school in Dallas. And so he spent some time with us during the semester in the house. I called it Dad Boot Camp. He's in summer school, and trust me, he would much rather be hanging out in New York City, but he's in summer school wishing he could be here. So Although I'm honored to be here, I'm fully aware that I'm a work in progress. I'm a work in progress as chairman and CEO of a Fortune 500 company. I'm a work in progress as a dad, meaning that every day you learn something different. And every day is a learning experience to strive to take these two big assignments I have and try to be the best that I can be. But I want to share just 3 commitments that I've made to myself, to my wife, and to my kids about being the best father that I can be. And the first commitment is the commitment of being accessible to my children. I read a long time ago that children spell love T-I-M-E, time. And from that, I'm a person that travels a lot, all around the country and literally all around the world, but not one time have I missed a parent-teachers conference, a band concert, or a sporting event of my 2 children. And when people ask me how that's possible with such a busy schedule, I tell them I have a foolproof way to determine what's important to people. I don't listen to what they say, I simply look at their calendar. Because the calendar dictates priorities. And what I do at the beginning of every year, in a very painstaking way, is I meet with my wife, make sure I understand all the family events, and I make sure that my calendar, from a business perspective, work itself around the family. Not boasting, but it's just a commitment that I made to ensure that I have a level of accessibility to my children. The second commitment that I've made is to treat my wife Sharon like a queen. Now, she'll tell you she deserves it because she does. She's a beautiful, wonderful person, but really that's not the reason. It sends a message to my son on the importance of honoring and respecting women, which is something I think that we would all agree is kind of lost in society. But even more important than that, it gives my young daughter, who's 15 years old, a green light to understand that she has to set high expectations for the men in her life. So let me tell you a quick story. It's a true story. I don't think Sharon's ever heard this story. So back in February, I was invited to go to the White House with a group of retail CEOs to meet with the president and his economic team to discuss taxes and trade policy. This is an important meeting because there was some pretty aggressive policies being floating around in Congress, and I wanted to make sure my voice was heard. So anytime there's a change in schedule, sit down with Sharon, make sure that we look at the family calendar, and I'm not going to upset any priorities we have. But also, if I think I'm going to end up in the national media, I'll make sure the kids get a heads up so they can answer questions at school or address it with their friends. So when I mentioned to Gabrielle that I was going to be headed to Washington, D.C. on February 15th, she immediately reminded me that that was the day after Valentine's Day. And I told her I was aware of that. And she wanted to know, was I going to be, in fact, traveling on Valentine's Day? And I told her I was, and I was predicting where this was going. I said, however, I have a surprise lunch for Mom tomorrow before I depart out of town. At the moment I said that, I could sense the parent-child relationship starting to turn. And Gabrielle looked at me and said, Dad, that's simply not good enough. She went on to say, you may not know this, but Mom really enjoys the dinners that you all have to celebrate Valentine's Day. And although a lunch may be sufficient for you, it is insufficient to celebrate Valentine's Day with Mom, and you simply have to do better. It's a true story. And so my first thought was, who does this child think she is? She's 15 years old, I'm the parent here. You know what, I'm gonna show her. And I showed her. I told Sharon, pack your bag, you're going to DC with me. True story. So what's the purpose of the story? Well, number one, it taught me that I had actually done a pretty good job of reinforcing to my daughter the importance of having high expectations for the men in her life, starting with her father. But it also taught me as a father, and many of you know this, parents, we never stop learning from our children. So Gabrielle, thank you for teaching your old man something that day. Look, the last point I'll make is the commitment to nurturing the dreams of your children. I think as parents, we all know the importance of that. Yeah, I want to highlight Sharon's mom, who's here. She's a 28-year pastor of a church in Memphis, Tennessee, but she also raised 4 daughters as a single mom in Memphis, and she committed her life to these girls' dreams and did an outstanding job as a parent of having young ladies grow up strong and confident, and that made a commitment in their lives that really elevated their dreams. I want to highlight my dad, who's here, who grew up in segregation in the Jim Crow South. When I was born, my parents were sharecroppers, picking and chopping cotton. That's how they provided economically for the family. Had limited access to education, but preached the importance of education, how education was the unlock from poverty. But they also elevated our dreams of all of my siblings and I. They did not allow the economic environment that we lived in or the lack of success that was visual to us to limit the capacity of our dreams. And my mother has passed away, she's gone to be with the Lord, but I want to thank my dad who's here for really investing in the dreams of his children, because without that, I wouldn't be here and know what my siblings be here. So thanks, Dad, I appreciate the commitment. So look, I'm wrapping up, but since I'm good at embarrassing people, I'll embarrass my dad a little bit further. At the young age of 58, my dad had a massive heart attack. And I remember like yesterday, standing in the examination room of one of the top cardiologists in the state of Tennessee, and he informed us my dad had 10 months to live because the damage in the cardiac arrest was so severe they couldn't even take any type of surgical procedure to repair it. My dad has taught faith all of my life, all the lives of our siblings, and he committed to his faith that he would not accept that judgment. Pleased to tell you that on Monday, we celebrated his 75th birthday. So I want to say, not only am I glad to accept his award, I'm glad at the wonderful age of 75, after a diagnosis 17 years ago that he wouldn't be here, that he's still going strong. So God is good, thank you, and God bless you.